Hello, hello. I am recording today for day 252 and day 253 of my 365-day raw suspending disbelief journey. This is for December 30th and December 31st, so this wraps up 2024. And no, I did not record this on New Year's Eve. So these 2 days were spent traveling, which is also a big reason why I did not actually record it on the 31st. Because even though I don't drink and party and do all of these things, the 31st was still a late night for me. So on the 30th, I took my daughter and we drove down to visit her dad, which is I think it took us about 5 hours. It's normally about a 3.5 hour drive. I had a couple of stops to make on the way down. And then I honestly we got up so much earlier than we had been over the rest of the holidays that I drank too much coffee and I had to stop too many times to pee. So it did slow us down. But we left early so that she could spend as many hours as possible on Monday on the 30th, doing whatever he wanted to do, planning whatever. I left it up to him to plan what he wanted to do with her while we were there. And I had it set up so that I could stay with my aunt and uncle who live in the same city as he does, overnight that night. And Cadence stayed with her dad. So, we we got there, we went to see a movie, we just kind of hung out and whatever. And then they went off and did their own thing while I went back to my aunt and uncle's for supper and just visiting and everything. I don't get to see that aunt and uncle very often. And it was really nice to be able to visit with them, and their son, who is actually my cousin, who's just a couple of years older than Cadence. So yeah, that was a lot of fun and stayed over there that night. And I swear, like, it might sound like the funniest thing in the world, but my uncle is a concert violinist. My aunt is a concert violist. And my cousin, I always want to say nephew with him because he's so much younger, but my cousin is also he's incredible with a violin. So he's going places, let me tell you. But they were all practicing late at night because they had their own things going on. And it was just like falling asleep to classical music, which was a lot of fun. It was really cool. And it was just faint in the background. It was beautiful. I do listen to classical music, but I don't often hear the practicing and the violin and all of it. And I grew up loving that because my family is very musical. So, it was just refreshing and it was really nice and really enjoyable. And I really, really enjoyed that. So that was lots of fun. And then on the 31st, got up and had breakfast with the family and then went for a walk with my aunt. It was chilly out, not crazy cold, but it was pretty chilly, and got a good workout in climbing icy stairs. So that was lots of fun. We got to see some beautiful sights, and I loved that. And then loaded up the vehicle and went to get my daughter and made the drive back. And it wasn't quite as long on the way back because I didn't have the stops to make and I didn't choose to drink so much coffee. But we had a blast. And on the way back, picked up my two youngest kids and headed back home. And of course, they had not had Christmas yet with us. So they had Christmas with their dad. But I got them back New Year's Eve and we had Christmas New Year's Eve. So, if it had been up to me, by the time we got home, we would have just went to bed. But everybody, of course, wanted to open their presents because they'd been waiting a week. And so we did all of that on New Year's Eve. And then we set some New Year's Eve resolutions, which was really interesting for me because I've always done this every year. It's family tradition. We sit down, we write down our New Year's resolutions, and we read over the ones from last year and see how we did on them and all of that. And um, I'm not sure if I've mentioned it on this podcast. I know that I did on the Spiral of the Rose podcast with Kelly. We had a whole episode about it, about the wheel of the year versus the Western calendar year. And I can't remember what the Western calendar year is called. It's different, but the wheel of the year is just, it makes so much more sense. And reflecting on your year and deciding what you want the next year to look like makes a lot more sense in like November. and January is like the dead winter, you know, gathering up the last bits of everything from the past year is long done, because if you look at it from a harvest perspective, dead of winter, there's nothing's been growing for quite a while, and you're not harvesting anything for quite a while. So really I did most of my reflection and sort of wrapping things up and everything towards the middle to end of November, and I did finish some things up in December, but it almost felt silly for me to even bother doing resolutions with my kids at New Year's. So I think I may extend my following the wheel of the year next year to the kids as well, instead of doing it at New Year's, because it just really doesn't make sense to me anymore. But maybe it's just a fun thing to look at anyways. And the ones that Casey and Jace had set were really funny from last year because they were so young. And their ones for this next year weren't much different. They were still pretty silly. And it was, but Cadence was able to go, oh, like, yeah, I did that. And for myself as well, I had checked it all off. It is just nice to have something as a marker to look at it and know that you made progress. So that was lots of fun. And it reminded me of something I don't think that I have talked about on this podcast yet, although I am a little bit behind on recording, so maybe I have. But every year for a few years now, I have set a word of the year, which is sort of correlated to an intention for the year, which could be related to, January New Year's resolutions type of a thing. So that is mostly what I've been doing at New Year's each year. And reflecting on it this year has been absolutely mind-blowing, because I've been looking back on a few years now of doing it and not just on one year. And I'm really watching the progression of my life, which is super, super cool. So I had in 2023, and I think I actually had figured out what 2022 was as well, but I can't think of it off the top of my mind right now. So 2023 was intentional, and I just wanted to be more intentional with my time, with my decisions, with everything that I was doing. And it's funny because I think even that year I was like, yeah, I got more intentional, right? But I don't think I realized that I did almost all of my shamanic training in 2023. And shamanism is very intentional as a practice. It is very ceremonial, very, you really look at things from a bigger picture perspective, and try to be more careful with your use of resources, try to be more intentional about all of that, try to be more intentional about being present and being grounded and connecting with nature and with people who you care about, and all of these kinds of things. So it was really, the word that I had picked for the year was just mind-blowingly perfect for completing my shamanic studies. So I thought that was really cool. And then 2024, I had picked independent. And that was because I was still at the beginning of 2024, struggling so hard financially, with all of the, um, we were still sort of recovering from having left my ex. Um, I had gone through so much of a personal dark night of the soul for the year prior that I really hadn't been able to build up my business. I'd been borrowing money left, right, and center, from family and like multiple family members, um, and still owing on things that I had signed up for before that, and um, it felt like I was just getting more and more in the hole financially all the time up until that point. And then a lot of the time what would end up happening was either I was borrowing from family, or I was, begging my exes for extra child support, or, a little bit of the child support early. And then when the child support came, it was like, it's not enough because I took some early, or, things like that. So, um, I was really just feeling the money scarcity stuff at the beginning of 2024. And so independent was the word that I chose. I wanted to be independent of needing to rely on other people financially. I wanted to get back to that point. I had been there before, and I was not liking that I wasn't there anymore, and so on. And really, back in, I think it was March when I started this podcast. Now I can't remember. I think it was March. That was what I was talking about, right? I owed my mom so much money, and I still owe my mom some money, but I have paid a big chunk of it off. And I sort of went to, or I paid her off completely, and then needed to borrow a little bit again, and I haven't fully paid that back yet. But that's been like an ongoing, I'm slowly whittling away at it, which is our agreement. And I can only foresee it going down more and more quickly as the months go by, just because things are starting to become more stable in my life. And being able to pay off all the other family members and stop borrowing from exes, or begging for early child support or extra, or, whatever the case may be. And starting to whittle away at the things that I owed prior to all of that, and so on. So really wrapping up 2024, looking at it, I was going, yeah, I haven't actually had to ask to borrow money in months now. Yes, I'm still paying back money that I borrowed previously, but it has been a massive shift into financial independence. And so I'm really, really proud of how this year went, as far as that intention goes. And I was really stuck for a long time on what I wanted my word for 2025 to be. I knew that I wanted to be, growing my business, scaling my business, getting back to the point where I had like just financial freedom, and really not just financial freedom, but a lot more time freedom, and a lot more just freedom in general uh, to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want, and how I want, and all of that. So, but freedom wasn't calling to me. The word freedom itself wasn't calling to me. So I was sort of stewing on it and stewing on it and stewing on it. And one night, I don't know, in the last week here, which clearly slowing down helped me to be available for, one of these nights in the last week here, I was lying down in bed, gradually falling asleep, and it just popped into my head, and I knew instantly that that was my word for 2025, and it was waterfall. And it seems so random that I kind of questioned it for a little bit, but I was like, no, it's exactly perfect, because what it means for me is this overflow of abundance, of time, of money, of all of it, prosperity in all forms, but overflow. And not only overflow, but also it comes from an infinite source. It comes from, and I know that that's not technically true, that, water is a finite resource and all of that, but waterfalls, they just keep flowing, right? They just keep on flowing. And it's that infinite source that it's coming from, and that overflow of abundance as it pours out. And I just thought, what a beautiful metaphor for what I want my life and finances to look like, going forward for the rest of my life, but especially, starting now, starting 2025. So that is my, that was, that's what I set my intentions around for New Year's resolution. That was what I, finally settled on for my word for 2025, and I started feeling sort of I don't know what it is, the magic of having a word for the year, but it was very, very powerful to be able to have that set. And I started setting up my altar for the year, you could call it a vision board, like putting up some pictures on the wall behind it, things like that. And it wasn't necessarily a vision board, but just a reminder board of like, this is what I want. And I put pictures of waterfalls, and I pulled some cards and I stuck those up. And I did, just some other random things that felt applicable, and just intuitively was like, okay, what am I going to put on this altar? What am I sort of dedicating this little corner of my space to, that will help me to focus on what I want for 2025. And the only thing that came to me so far was a pen. And I thought that was so funny. I have been wanting to write and trying to fit writing into my schedule and all of these things, for so long now. And it was like, this is what you need to do. So I put a pen on there, and that's all that's there so far, which is really, really interesting. And I'm not going to put anything else until, other inspiration strikes. But I really just made it clear, like, the writing that I've been wanting to do has a tie to my overflow, to my financial overflow, to my time freedom, to all of it. So it needs to be a primary focus. And I am suspending disbelief about that, because for whatever reason, I don't have a deep-seated belief that writing will get me there. So I'm going to have to suspend disbelief about that quite a bit, to be sure that I continue to make it a focus and prioritize it as it needs to be prioritized. That was a clear message for me on what my focus needs to be going forward. So, and I was actually doing that. That was one of the things that I did over the weekend while I was just relaxing and doing nothing, quote unquote, was sort of lean into all of that and figure out all of that. So yeah, we stayed up way too late. The kids went to bed way too late. It was not a good start out to the week of my younger kids being home. It was not, setting a good precedent for what the rest of the week off of school was going to look like. But it was a lot of fun, and we got to take our time and open the presents and do our intentions and just play and laugh and be silly, and that's okay too. And it's exactly how it was meant to be. So that's what I have for you guys today, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.